in terms of kind of rules and stuff for the show, there aren't really any. Don't slander people. That'd be nice, you know.
Oh man.
Have a drink. We'll chat for about an hour. In which case, welcome to the podcast, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
That's all good. As is tradition on the show, I'm terrible at introducing people. So if you would, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do.
I'm Ben Gore. I am an artist based in Brighton at the moment. I make a variety of things from handmade action figures to books, and I run a small arts publisher called Blue Monday Press.
Nice. You say currently in Brighton. Are you not originally from Brighton? Or are you?
I might be moving soon.
Oh,
so
I know those feelings. So were you like born Brighton, or are you?
I'm born like a town over from Luton. Everyone knows it for the airport. It's like just north of London.
Oh yeah. No, yep, I do know where that is. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm around commuter belt of London, basically.
So like down south all most of your life then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I found you obviously through your Bootleg Bible, which is
nice.
Your book. I feel like I bought it from Reddit, but I don't know if you use Reddit.
I post a lot of stuff on Reddit.
Yeah, so I bought your book, your Bootleg Bible. Can you tell us a little bit what your book's about?
So the Bootleg Bible is basically a collection of some of my favorite like bootleg toy makers from around the world. So bootleg toy makers, you cobble together handmade action figures, either one-offs or in a series. Just something you think deserves an action figure. It could be like as a joke, or it could be like a homage to your favorite film.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to collect all those in one place, basically,
and tell people how they can do it.
There's a little how-to guide in there as well, which is quite fun to put together.
I mean, we'll come back to that. I did notice that you're a photographer as well at one point.
Yeah, I did photography at uni, and then I've kind of dipped my toes in a lot of different arts, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You got your hands in many bags, I guess.
Yeah, in many pies, as many pies as I can.
I mean, is that a habit for you? Have you always done that, or is that just something you did since uni? Just like
I mean, I like with art and making stuff. I think for me, there is a lot of play in it. Like I want to have fun making it, and like making stuff in a new material. That novelty makes it like more fun and it's also fun to see kind of how you do it badly. Like if you make a sculpture, you don't really know what you're doing, and it comes out like a lumpy mess. But sometimes it's quite fun, like seeing it that way.
So you've never done sculpture before getting into doing bootlegs, or?
I did a bit of clay.
Okay.
But kind of at the same time I came across bootleg toys for the first time, I can actually show you what I made.
That'd be cool.
This is my first ever sculpture. So basically, MF Doom released like an EP. I think it was like £100. It came with like an action figure bust kind of thing. So I couldn't afford it, so I made my own version.
Yeah.
And yeah, with art stuff, a lot of it is kind of just making weird stuff that I would like, and then hoping someone also likes that and wants it.
I don't think that's a bad way to approach it.
Yeah.
I think that's how I approach my illustration stuff. I draw something which I think, I like the look of this. Don't really care if anybody else likes it. Just push it out into the world.
What kind of illustration stuff do you do?
So I kind of do all sorts. I do like general traditional illustration as well, digital stuff. But I also do fine art, like painting and sculpture. And then I found you through zines and various publications through that.
Oh, nice.
But because I had an interest in, essentially, you might be able to see the poster behind me.
Yeah.
So it's a recreation of a poster from Home Movies, which is an Adult Swim cartoon at one point. Yeah. And I started doing that of just like remaking posters and making posters for films which didn't exist. And that was kind of a little in which I went. So when I saw your book, I was like, bootleg miniatures.
Yeah, it's the same logic pretty much.
Just diving deeply into it. I mean, was your photography work kind of heavily pop culture based then, or is it more general?
No, my photography was. I mean, you could maybe say I'm quite into like sci-fi, so I'd say my photography was a bit like it was a bit angsty, dystopia-y, grey, industrial. Like I did a lot of photos when I was at uni when the student protests were going on, so I went to a lot of those. Obviously, as a kind of participant, but as also as like a documentarian, I guess. And yeah, I enjoyed capturing stuff like that. But to be like I do enjoy photography. To kind of be a working photographer, there's a lot of like, you're almost like a director more. It's like getting a person in one place, getting the lighting right.
Yeah.
Whereas I quite like the go for a walk and see what you find, but there's not really any money in that.
No. I know that feeling. I studied photography and film at uni, and I think much like you, I got to the end of my course and was just like, yeah, to be a photographer, it's a different world to just taking the photographs I want to take. Like, and I know a lot of people who became like fashion photographers or wedding photographers following.
Yeah.
So that's just not for me.
I did some assisting with like a furniture photographer, which sort of just literally just moving furniture around a room and then standing to the side for half an hour while they take photos, and then you move the furniture again. And it was stuff like what they would do is they'd rent like a empty flat, and then you'd, as the assistant, you move all the furniture in, take all the photos, and everyone moves all the furniture out. Yeah, it just wasn't that fun, really.
You get paid less than a removal company.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I remember vividly we had a lecture on, I think it was like food photography at one point, and it was like, yeah, if you're assistant on food photography, you're basically just like misting and like foods with different oils and what. It's like, yeah, this is your life now. I'm like, oh, great. I'd rather just go out and photograph whatever I see around me. So yeah, I mean, so it sounds like you're very tactile with the stuff you do. That when you create, you want to just kind of make the things which make you happy.
Yeah, I'm quite like, yeah, it is quite a lot on like feelings. Like even if I'm stuck, well, what I like to do is I make quite a few things in one go. With the toys especially, I'll start making maybe 15.
Right, okay.
And then the way I do my toys is that I sand stuff down, then I sculpt on top, then I paint, then I package. But at any step of that process, something isn't kind of going quite right, I might drop it out, maybe come back to that another time. So by the end, I've got a few that I really like. Yeah, I feel like that is the best. You have to have like an emotional reaction a little bit. I mean, it sounds a bit stupid for me, like, but one of the most recent figures I made was like literally a photo of someone shitting in the woods, and it's just like a little person squatting and a poop coming out. But that made me laugh, so it got finished.
I mean, that's important. I've heard that before. Speaking recently to someone who does retro illustrations, like uses a very kind of retro golden age of comic style. And they were saying that they hate doing commissions because they don't feel anything about them. Yeah. But when they do their work, it's like, yeah, you've got that. Even if it's, like you say, just a small little, this is going to be fun. You know.
I don't know if other people do it, but I mean, it depends on the commission. If I like the person and the idea is good, I'll do it for cheaper than if I don't have that initial feeling, kind of thing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And also there's stuff like if you do a commission and then you'll be proud to put it in your portfolio is obviously different to doing one just for money. But
I guess I'm curious then, how do you pick your subjects? Because you've got quite a range of various toys.
I mean, I make a lot of lists. I watch a lot of movies. I feel like I do absorb a lot of pop culture, and then sometimes it's just smushing to. Sometimes it's literally like I'll cut a bunch of heads off toys and I'll see what body looks funny, kind of thing. Or otherwise it's films I really like. I just made a toy about the French Dispatch, like the artist character in that, or it's either like a joke or like something in pop culture I enjoy, whether it be like a film or a TV show, or and I basically have long lists on my phone, on notebooks and stuff, and then I basically pour out I've got loads of old figures that I just get off eBay in job lots, kind of thing. Pour them out on the floor and then kind of see what matches together, or like maybe there's a figure I didn't notice could be something else. And then each step again, I like writing all the ideas down, seeing what works, starting sanding, and then stuff drops out it gets like filtered out each process.
Okay. It's a lot more, what's the word? Kind of organic than I guess I expect the process to be. Because when you see like resin things online, or you see like art sculptures, it seems like what always put me off was kind of like how homogenized it becomes. Like you do your original sketch, and then you make your figure, and then from that point on, it just seems very industrial. Like, I'm just reproducing what I've made and what I've made and what I've made.
Yeah.
Whereas
most of mine are one of one. So that keeps the novelty in. I have done a few like copies, but that's quite hit or miss, because sometimes you'll spend, because like making a mold's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And then pouring the resin, making sure you haven't got air bubbles, and then maybe you make like 20 of a figure, and then 3 people buy it, and you spend like a few weeks on it. And also repainting stuff is really boring. I don't like it at all. Like 3 times is okay, but once it gets to like 12, 10 times, like it's not fun.
I'm curious now if you ever did like miniatures as a kid, like Warhammer or
really badly. I actually spoke to someone about it the other day. Like I remember getting Warhammer and trying to paint it, and then it just went brown because I was too impatient. Like, as a kid, I liked making things, but I was terrible at it. I like watching like Art Attack, but I would never. It would never correlate to actually finishing it.
I feel like Art Attack has a lot to answer for within the UK for like DIY artists. Just pick up things and like, I'm just going to make this. It's like, why? Because Neil Buchanan told me I could do it, so I'm going to go off and do this. Do you ever have trouble selling stuff then, like getting rid of something because you put time and effort into it and you're making one of one? Do you ever have a kind of like an emotional struggle selling something if you're making one of one every single time?
Not really, because for me, like the joy is in the making.
Right.
And kind of like once I've finished it, there are a couple of things, if it didn't sell, I'd be happy to keep it, kind of thing. And I'm still proud of all the stuff I finished, but kind of once it's done, for me, I've like achieved making it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I make a lot of things, so I kind of want it made, I'm happy with it, and then it immediately goes to like someone's house and then they enjoy it, kind of thing. Like I'd rather sell all my stuff for a certain amount of money and have all of it gone than like sell one piece for that same amount of money and then have all the other bits, if that makes sense. I enjoy the process of making it, but once I've done it, I like it also like existing outside of me.
I like that.
And also my house has already got like too much art around. Maybe
we can't see it in frame, but I'm just imagining just a wall of like random toys.
It is pretty much that. Like just over here, and then there's like a bookshelf here as well.
I mean, I just kind of had a quick scan around, and I was like, well, I've noticed you've got like a poster for Lahane in the corner, and like, I'm just assuming the rest of your house is just memorabilia.
Kind of.
Multiple. Okay, that kind of brings us on to like an awkward question, which I got thinking about kind of pre this, because I was thinking about the whole like bootleg culture, and like when I think bootleg, I think copies of vinyls and tapes is what instantly comes to mind to me there. And then it kind of brings us on to what's the legality of doing this?
So I mean, it's very much a gray area. The best way to describe it, I'd say, is like when you're doing one of one, that's fine, because the issue is like reproducing something. So if you produce one, you're not reproducing, you're just producing.
Right. Okay.
So if I make one Mickey Mouse figure kind of thing in my own style, so it's clear it's not an official Disney. I'm trying to like pretend to be Disney. That's fine. Okay. If I start making copies and someone could confuse it for like an official Disney product, that's where you have like an issue. Okay. But it tends to be if you smush 2 things together, you're making a new thing, so you can make as many as you want. But if you try and make something that looks too official that could confuse someone, that can kind of be an issue. But I've only actually had one email about it, which was I made a Thundercat figure.
Right.
And and like tagged him and his label in it, and his label messaged me like, "This is nice, but don't make more."
I mean, at least they complimented you a little bit.
Yeah.
Just throw the lighter at you. It's just like,
Yeah.
I always think it's one of those things like I there's very little stuff which I do with pop culture, mainly just because of concerns of kind of copyright and whatnot. Like I'll do the home movie stuff, but it's no longer on the air and you can't really even buy the DVDs anymore. So I feel like I'm kind of okay in there. But I've seen at least two other artists. I think I had Emily Engel on the show, and she does Muppet replicas. But she doesn't make puppets. She just makes like small toys, and she's had a hell of a time with kind of Etsy, just like striking everything down. And then there was a guy I follow on Instagram who takes Warhammer figures and repurposes them, so makes them into kind of like dystopian armies and stuff like that. And basically got a cease and desist from Games Workshop about
Interesting.
not doing any of that. Yeah, and I think it's one of those kind of like lines which you have to be more aware of if you're doing the kind of work which you're doing. So yeah,
kind of, yeah. The key for me in my head, the key is like you have to make it clear that like a person made this that is distinct from whatever you're copying, I think.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of my stuff you wouldn't think, oh, that came from a factory. You would think someone has made that with their weird little hands.
In the best way, obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I like that like aesthetic kind of thing. Yeah, none of my stuff kind of pretends to be in that sphere, and then I feel like enough is being done to it. Like with the Games Workshop thing, I guess he's directly using their figures, whereas the figures I'm using are from like 1980s. Actually, one of my favorite figures is from, I think it's called Space Precinct.
Right.
My favorite figure to use, which is like a 1990s like cop drama set in space.
Okay. I kind of want to see this now.
It's all right. I watched a couple episodes just out of curiosity. But yeah, for some reason, there's loads of those action figures for cheap on eBay, and they're like the perfect size and they're quite easy to use.
Just writing that down.
So,
Space Precinct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, yeah, I mean, but then your graphic design work on your figures is what I'd say is fairly sophisticated. Like it looks legit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that take you longer than the figure? Like
no, not really. The figures, well, I basically do the figures. Each step of the process takes a while. Like when I'm sculpting, I sculpt for a bit and then I got to let it dry and sit to the side. And then even with the sanding and stuff, I like to sand with like a hand sander and then put it aside and then think about how I could shape it up a bit more and then come back to it. The packaging is like, I kind of have the templates now, so I know roughly where everything should go.
Okay.
So it's more of a case of like finding the right picture, editing it, finding some good fonts.
Yeah.
And then I kind of know where everything should be roughly. Yeah. So if I'm doing like a piece on like a piece of art, like a painting, I've already got like a template, which is basically just like bang the painting in the middle, the artist name and title of the piece and the date at the top, and then Blue Monday Press and the edition number at the bottom, and then it's good to go basically.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's fairly streamlined. I like it.
Yeah.
Are you one of these people who gets lost in their hobbies then? Did this start as a hobby and you just expand?
Kind of, yeah. I go down the rabbit hole a lot. And if I'm interested in something, I'm like very interested in it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes.
I mean, be honest, Ben, how many hobbies have you got on the go right now?
I mean, what have I got? Only a couple at the moment, really.
Okay, that's not too bad.
I got, for some reason, this season, after the Euros, I got super interested in football.
Okay.
Which I hadn't been following in 15 years, maybe.
Right.
And I've also been playing like 7-side. So that's been going on for like maybe almost a year.
Yeah.
That's something where like, I literally hadn't kicked a ball in,
yes,
about 2 decades, and then started getting into it, and then joined like a 7-a-side thing. And
I mean, you really dove in then.
Yeah, I kind of go ahead once I know I want to do something. I go straight in.
It's got a vision of like a cupboard filled with skis and various other things where you dove into something for like a year and a half and then just went, yeah. No.
So I did have a magic stage, which as an adult,
okay,
which some of my friends still kind of tease me about. But they also it means I also have like 3 magic kits in my cupboard because a few people got it as me as a joke, like Secret Santa or birthday. So I've got 2 magician's capes somewhere in my house.
I mean, I guess if one, gets wet, like whatever, or you perform,
you'd have a backup just in case. A
like
day cape and a night cape.
It's like you're like a Swiss Army knife of various like little bits you can just do. Like,
yeah, kind of. I have a lot of weird skills. Like I had learned to DJ as well. I can skateboard, roller skate. Yeah, there's a lot of like I've had like lots of skateboarding I've done like most of my life, but
I've
had a lot of like 3-month intense hobbies kind of thing. I also did do you know like white collar boxing, like the charity fighting? So I did the MMA version of that a couple of years ago as well.
You really do just dive into anything.
Yeah.
I like that. That's just I mean, do you find like everything you do, you just kind of pick up a skill to use further on down the line? Or is this just something where you do it and then you abandon it?
The fighting can go in handy, yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Thankfully.
On occasion.
Kind of. I would say I'm quite a slow learner for the first like chunk of learning a skill. But if I get over that hurdle, then I pick stuff up quite quickly. Like if most people go like this, I would go like that, and then it kind of shoots up.
Mm-hmm.
So once I kind of see myself shooting up, I forget. Yeah, once I start getting I can see I'm learning it basically. Then I keep doing it until I kind of get bored of it, basically.
That's interesting. I think that's where most people, I find, kind of abandon things, is where they get into it and it does take them longer to kind of pick it up than maybe they expected. Or you start like, I mean, I've been learning a language, and learning it is the most awful thing I've ever done. And I'm like, I feel like a lot of people that you spend like a couple of weeks trying to do something, if it doesn't work out perfectly, they just go, I'm done with that. How do you get through that then? Like that initial learning stage?
That's a good question. I wish I kind of knew, because I can't control it as much as I think I can.
Okay.
Because sometimes I try and push myself into something, but it has to almost be organic. Like, I don't know. It's like if you're like a market and you smell like a nice smell and you follow the smell, even if something else looks good, like you want to follow the smell. Like that's the thing that's really enticing you. So even with the football, like I've been enjoying following it and also playing it. But the following it it's so big compared to other, like skateboarding is kind of big, MMA is kind of big, but not the same scale as like football, where there's like international, there's like loads of different leagues, loads of different players. So it's kind of overwhelming when I try and throw myself head first into that. I have to like pull myself back because it's too big to kind of comprehend.
So you don't get overwhelmed by the...
Yeah, kind of, because once I go down the rabbit hole, I have to like, you have to come up for air, if you know what I mean.
After the 3-month bender. All I've thought about is footballs and scores and things like that. It is one of those things that like I'm very much like you. I like to explore different things, even just for like a month or so, and then I try to apply those different bits to everything else I'm doing as I go along. But I do think a lot of people kind of always fall at that first hurdle. And like you say, it's hard to explain. Like, so I think someone literally asked me on the podcast, like, how do you stay productive? And I was just like, I don't know. I just do things. And they keep going. So I noticed a theme in your work, and I'm kind of curious. A lot of hip hop in your work.
Oh yeah. Why? I'm a big hip hop head.
Yeah.
When I said I was a DJ, I was also a hip hop DJ.
Okay.
Which I still dip my toes in if there's an opportunity. But I feel like that was, I don't know if it's the place everyone, but for me, that was like, when you kind of turn into a teenager, I feel like you kind of stick to one genre. Like there's like the rock kids, there's like the hip hop kids, there's like the pop kids.
Yeah.
I was like one of the hip hop kids. Speaking of bootlegs, actually, I used to sell bootleg CDs to people in my school of like compilations of like all the best Biggie songs or all the best Tupac or
yeah.
that
So
kind of
like,
thing.
I mean, that's I feel like that's quite rare. Like, so like you say, you kind of get heavy into things. I mean, you mentioned MF Doom and Biggie, and I know from looking at your site, you've got quite like what I'd class as like hardcore hip hop.
Yeah,
Not just like surface level. Oh, I listen to Eminem and Jay-Z,
yeah,
like
yeah.
that kind of thing. You really like were invested in that. Presumably have been since then.
Yeah, pretty much. Although I feel like my maybe it's kind of happens when you hit your 30s. My knowledge is kind of stalling a bit.
Okay.
I feel like I'm slower to listen to the new album.
Yeah.
I'm not following it as much. I kind of have like that bass. There's a big bass level. But yeah, I love hip hop. Like, it's just that music that the sounds of it I really enjoy. And yeah.
Is it? I mean, I always say that I'm a sucker for a good drum beat.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's it. And bass as well. Like, I love
Yeah.
the bass line. And then obviously, yeah, I just love people rapping as well.
Yeah, I think there's a bit special about rap and hip hop. I've had a few rappers on the show, like a couple of them from the nerdcore genre, a couple from kind of more like grime and American gangster rap. We go on about how grime's like this quintessentially English thing, and like I'm very much of the opinion, because I listen to a lot of indie rap, of like I don't know how to take grime. Because
Okay.
it's so in your face compared to like the indie rap stuff, that when I listen to it, I'm just like, this is a lot. I can't just sit and vibe to this thing.
I mean, I love grime as well. Like, I do sit and vibe to grime. It is, I mean,
how do you vibe to grime though? I'm just like this. Like, I feel like I'm being yelled at.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like, if you have to kind of think of it like grime is where it comes from, like sound system culture, like Jamaican culture, where someone would spin a record and then you speak your bars, similar to how old MCing was when it started, I guess. But if you think grime is a lot of like catchphrases.
Yeah.
So every rapper has their own like ad lib, which is like their signature. Like how, I mean, some rappers will say like, oh, it's me, such and such. But grime, every rapper has like a few catchphrases. And I feel like grime is can often be more like funny than a lot of other rap. It doesn't take itself, and it is kind of nerdy as well. Like, I don't know if you know JME, but he did like a video not long ago where he like sampled the Pokemon theme tune, and it's called like The Very Best. It's all about him like being the very best. But yeah, I like grime a lot.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know if you kind of get that feeling of when it comes to like English art and music and whatever, there's always like an edge of comedy to everything.
Yeah, there's a UK, I think it's called I think it was Young'un who said this, but I used to follow like UK hip hop a lot as well. And he had a bar in one of his songs that was like, if I blow up, I might buy a dishwasher. Like if I get famous, I'm gonna get a dishwasher. Like that's the ceiling.
Yeah.
Obviously grime is much higher than that now, but I feel like there is that kind of like self-deprecating yeah, I feel like there's with Americans, sometimes I feel like they have a lot of like there's the American dream. There's not really like the English dream. There's not really an equivalent.
No, I feel like the English dream would be very understated.
Yeah.
Like, I just want a cup of tea and like sitting down. Like,
hopefully the weather's nice. That's pretty much it. Like, yeah, that's kind of how I see it, I guess.
It's one of those things where when I think about it, like you say, like American creations of any sort, there is like a level of ego where they won't damage their own ego. Like, you know,
yeah, kind of.
You're not going to see someone come on and like just take the piss out of themselves for an hour because they're going to amp themselves up. Whereas in the UK, it's kind of like deteriorates, and we're just like, no, you know, I'll say I'm amazing, but also here's what I'm shit at. So I find it interesting when like people like myself and you find hip hop, and we're just like, oh yeah, these guys talk about themselves like they're like gods and kings. And
well, I think it's the kind of, sometimes you do like, you get amped up from that. They're being like, I'm the best kind of thing. Like, yeah, I'm the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't leak into our actual work somehow.
Well, yeah. I mean, hopefully on the upswing, both of us. So,
well, yeah. I mean, I had a look through your website. Like, you seem to have worked with like some fairly like what I'd class as big brands. Like, I think I saw Ministry of Sound in there.
yeah, I've done lots. I've done a few bits for some bigger companies, not as much recently.
What did you do for Ministry of Sound?
I did some illustrations for like. It was just like a post on their website about issues to avoid when you're in Ibiza. And I did like funny cartoons of like someone getting sunburned on the beach, getting attacked by a crab, kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I like it. I say, like, this is the kind of thing where, like, when I found your book and I thought about kind of like reaching out to you, I was like, there's a lot in it which I related to, of just like how you present humor and your kind of attitude to more like DIY creation, as it were. Do you ever feel like doing kind of like DIY stuff and stuff which is related to pop culture, that there's like a barrier to more fine art stuff where people look at it and they're like, not too sure about that?
Kind of, but I feel like they kind of go in and out of vogue. They go DIY kind of comes in and out of fashion. So sometimes it can be like really cool to be like doing a DIY thing, and then sometimes it is kind of looked down upon. But I mean, I don't think I have access to that art world. Like, regardless, to be honest, like if I wasn't doing DIY stuff, I just wouldn't be able to do stuff really.
Right. Yeah.
So it's almost like I'm forced to go down that route. And also I just like having no oversight really.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, like working with other people is nice, but I quite like being the lead of a project.
Right.
So when I'm doing something for someone, well, I want to do what I think is the best idea, but sometimes you have to filter that down and water it down, and maybe it's not as, you don't like it as much.
Ben doesn't work well with others.
Yeah, I won't go that far, but would prefer to play on his own sometimes, kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
But I like doing collaborative project like the Bootleg Bible.
Mm-hmm.
That was really fun because I was the lead of that, but then I also got to kind of like speak to all my favorite artists and like get their input on like a craft I really enjoy. Like, how do they each approach it differently? And like, I get to pick their brain, kind of thing. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I think that's something which kind of comes up as well. As like you mentioned there, is like it's a craft which someone learns to do, experiments in and make something. Do you think there's kind of like a difference between that and what would be considered traditional fine art? Because there's always that conversation of whether it's art or
not. I kind of don't really believe in talent. I don't really believe in that art signifier as much. Or like traditional art. I kind of think all arts are a craft. Like anything you see in a gallery, someone has spent a lot of time like thinking about how to make things, and that's what they've ended up making after however many years, basically. And that's them learning the craft of art. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a trade. Like, it's not like you have to have done one particular thing. But I think art, the thinking of making things, is like the craft.
Right.
Yeah, you as an artist, your thought process of like, I've had an idea, I've researched these 5 different things, I smush it all together, and I make a thing and I show you it. And yeah, that is the craft. Whether it's a painting or a sculpture, like that process has happened pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think kind of putting it on a pedestal, you can be an incredible artist. But I think the sphere of art is so huge. You have room for like terrible art that you absolutely hate, and amazing, incredible art that you can see they've dedicated the whole life to. It's still art. It's just maybe a different part of that scale, depending on your perspective.
Yeah. Do you think that's something which we're kind of taught, or do you think that's just something like an idea which comes naturally to you, that whole vibe?
I don't know. I think I've just spent enough time looking at art, but that's kind of how I feel about it. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? You walk around a gallery and sometimes you're like, some of this stuff sucks. Like, it's just not well done. It's not interesting. I don't like looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
The blurb is pretentious. Sometimes you'll like look at something else and you're like, well, this is amazing. I've got a big emotional reaction to it. I love this. And yeah, that, like, I could hate a Rembrandt but love like an obvious plant where it's like a, I don't know, there's the whistle that summons bald men, and it's just like a packaged whistle, and that's what the packaging says.
Yeah.
And I've got a emotional reaction to that more than, yeah, like a, I mean, I do really like Rembrandt, but that's just an example I plucked out the air. And yeah, I think it is a lot, there's art is a lot of tricks. Like, you put something in a frame, it looks fancier.
Yes.
Like, that is a big trick of art.
Yeah. I think maybe there's something which doesn't get talked about enough, is just how much art is kind of just attempting to manipulate your own audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when you go to a concert, they've got the lights, they've got the big stage. If you go to a gallery and there's like a sculpture on a plinth,
yeah,
that looks more important than if you saw that just like on the floor somewhere. But
yeah,
do you know what I mean? If you saw a scrumpled up crisp packet on a plinth at a gallery, you might be like, what does this mean? But you walked like past it on the street and then it's nothing.
It's interesting what to say. Like, I mean, obviously you came from kind of studying photography and whatnot. I remember studying photography and them telling me, was like, there's a right way and there's a wrong way to frame an image. And, you know, like, oh, you know, you should avoid black borders and you should have this kind of frame. And always thinking to myself, just like, well, surely the image is what matters here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's weird that we're teaching that as the baseline.
Yeah,
how to create.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'd say as well, there are kind of rules of thumb though.
Mm.
Like, rule of thirds is like a handy, when you introduce someone to something, it's good to have like, this is the best way to start doing this. And then once you're like, oh, okay, this works here, but if I shift it here, it might work better. Yeah, I don't agree. Yeah, when people are like, you have to do it this way, not that way.
Yeah,
I don't like that at all.
No, as soon as someone tells me no, it's kind of like a red flag.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do is if I go to like a fine art gallery, or, you know, like a sculpture park or somewhere like that, is I take as many friends with me who aren't at all invested in art, like just not really interested in it, just don't really know anything about it, probably didn't study or anything like that, just to see what they react to.
Yeah,
because I think there's a value in just seeing how people just react as like research. I'm just like, okay, this is what you relate to, and this you know, this thing which I really like, and I can see why it's important. Blah blah blah. Blah. You hate it, so I'm like, cool.
Yeah,
I'm never doing that.
But it's also, that's only what that person thinks. It's also the key of that is like, if I showed my dad pretty much anything I'd made, he'd be like, I just don't understand this.
Yeah.
Whereas if I show like one of my friends, they'd be like, love that, love what you did with this, and like, I can see you watch this film and it came from that. Or yeah, I have to, when I'm making stuff, I have to kind of think like, if I came across to somewhere, what would my reaction be? Like, would I be, if I turned a corner, if I went in a shop or something and I saw the Bootleg Bible and I hadn't made it, kind of thing, I would be incredibly excited about that. And that's kind of the logic I try and start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good message. Kind of fair. I think for like anyone who's creating, like, I mean, say you've got lots of interests and lots of hobbies, which you just kind of pick up as you go along. I think there's always that risk with kind of hobbies of you'll start looking into a hobby and then think I could do this for a job.
I mean, that is my job, basically. That is kind of the box I put myself in. Yeah. But going back to that thing about taking people who aren't into art to art galleries, whenever I've done a few exhibitions, and I try and have that same logic, but with getting people to make art. So I did like an exhibition on hip hop, and it was like a bunch of different illustrators all drawing it was called Your Favorite Rapper. All these illustrators drawing their favorite rappers. And then in the gallery, I set up a drawing table where it was like 100 blank sheets of paper, and it said like your favorite rapper, and then like a blank space, and then like name, blank space, then age. So it's kind of like when you go to like a kid's restaurant and they can like draw something and put it on the wall. So any age, anyone come in, draw your favorite rapper, I'll put it on the wall. You've been in an exhibition now. like you're an artist. Just to try and like demystify that, like you have to have like I don't think you have to be good at your craft. Like someone could do a drawing in 10 seconds that I like more than someone who spent like 20 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that changes the reaction you get to your work if you put it in a gallery versus just like maybe putting it online for sale? Like, do you think it maybe, I don't know, legitimizes it, I guess, in a way?
It feels like it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It kind of rubber stamps it a bit that it's legitimate. Even if you do it yourself, it feels like it heightens it a bit. And also, when you're seeing something on your phone or computer or whatever, you're seeing it like this big.
Yeah.
Whereas if you see it in like a room and it's A2 or something, it's going to have a much bigger impact. And you've got, when you're looking at your phone, you might be getting text at the same time. You might be getting, there's like 20 other images you can see in a minute.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're standing in front of something, it is obviously going to have a bigger impact. Yeah.
Definitely. I do like the idea of kind of breaking the gallery rules. So I'm one of my, so I make a zine, which I give away for free, and essentially collects anonymous artwork, so anyone could submit to it. There's like a way of encouraging people to create, because it was one of those things of people just being afraid of what people's interpretations of their work will be, that it's not good enough, etc., etc. So I make these zines, and then every time I'm in London, I leave them in very fancy galleries.
Oh, nice.
Just abandon them. And my joke is like, how do you get your work into the Tate? You just take it in.
Yeah.
Just abandon it.
Yeah, I like that.
I think, yeah, I definitely think there's a huge importance to push against that barrier as much as possible.
Yeah, so I got a lot of that inspiration. I don't know if you've heard of the Photocopy Club.
Yeah.
So Matt, who runs that, when I moved to Brighton, we were friends, and he was basically moving to London from Brighton, and he gave me his old room in his house, and he'd set up a gallery in the hallway of there, which was just a hallway in a house basically, but the front door opened onto like a fairly busy street in Brighton. But yeah, he was doing shows just in that little tiny hall, like it was about this wide. And that kind of like opened my mind of like, you can do anything kind of anywhere. And his whole thing with Photocopy Club is like, you would photocopy your photo, send it to him. He literally just covers a whole wall of a gallery in all these, and you can donate £5 and take anyone you want, any size.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, that kind of demystifies the art stuff, because it's like, the point of doing a photocopy was it's so cheap for everyone to do it. Like no one's going to look better because they spent £200 on the fanciest print and framing and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a cheap, easy way to do art on your terms, basically, which I think is very important.
It is. I agree. I think if anyone creates or makes something, you've got to do it on your terms. Otherwise, you'll end up hating it. Like, I'm sure there's things which you've done or things which I've done which we've gotten halfway through and went, you know what, no.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work for me anymore. So, I mean, as a kind of like coming to the last 15 minutes, I'm curious what your advice for people getting started with this stuff is.
I think my key thing would be, if you want to start making art stuff, was to like set yourself projects. Like try not to just do like one amazing piece. Try and do like a series or a zine or a book, or that all has like a common through line, which can be as vague as you want. But I think finishing a project, investing a certain amount of time in a series, is kind of how you learn how to be better at art, for me anyway. Yeah. Like making a collection, looking at it, and then being like, okay, so in this book, so I did a comic or something, like these 3 pages are great, I love how I laid them out or something, but I need to improve on like my drawing of hands, or like the guns I drew weren't good enough. But that's done now, set that to the side, and then work on the next thing. But also I feel like finishing a project, it's much easier to like being if you want to be a professional artist, you have to be able to sell stuff as well, and selling like a project is much easier than selling individual bits. Yeah. And also it's much easier to promote. and then being able to like have an idea, plan a project, spend the time working out all the kinks. Like something's going to go wrong, obviously. Figuring out how to budget if you want a zine or something. Like if I do 50 zines, they cost £1 to make. I want to make a few quid, so I sell them for £5, and then what shops might sell them. I think planning a project and thinking about each of those steps, and then you just keep doing it for each thing. So yeah, doing projects would be my key thing, I think.
And keep on improving on each, I guess, each project you do. Do you think people get hung up on the original idea?
How do you mean?
So like, when someone thinks of an idea and then whatever the idea is, and they think to themselves, oh, it's not good enough, or it's not serious enough, it's not funny enough.
Yeah, kind of. I think the key to beat that is to like keep a list of ideas and then just pick the one you like the most, because then you're like, even if it's the best of a bad bunch, it's like you're doing something. And if you incorporate like learning a new skill or honing your craft, at least like, I mean, a lot of art is like, this is what I could do best at this time.
Yeah, I think that's
like some stuff. I look back on some of my old stuff with the toys. I'm like, the packaging's a bit ropey. That sculpture's not great. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I'm glad I finished it, because if I kind of gave up halfway, it wouldn't be logged in my brain as those mistakes or those things I did right. Because even if you do something badly, you can be like, well, I did do this thing good though. There's always positives you can take from it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's I think that's probably one of the best ways to word it. It's just like, this is the best I was doing at the time.
Yeah.
And I always feel like people should wear those mistakes more often than they do. Like I know a lot of people, especially with social media, etc., hide their old work, and they'll be like, oh, well, this was from 5 years ago, I can do much better than this now. And I always think to myself, well, with the amount of times I've been to an exhibition or a gallery to look at sketchbooks by the masters, as it were, and like, they would have hated this. Like,
yeah,
you're seeing their doodles, the stuff which they chose not to put in a frame. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what our social media is now.
But also, that's the practice. A lot of art is practice as well. So yeah, working out those kinks is like, I want to do a sculpture, I want to do it of this person, I should do some sketches, what pose would be best, and then like, oh, this one looks the best.
Yeah.
Can I sculpt them in that? Am I good enough to like sculpt two hands like this, or am I going to have to do it like this because that's easier and that's all I can do, kind of thing?
Yeah. Is there anything you avoid sculpture-wise?
I don't think actively.
No.
I don't know if I've done many full body clay sculptures.
Do a lot of busts, like shoulders.
Yeah, I've done quite a few busts because it's quicker, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, not actively. I try and push myself a bit. Like I don't know if you've seen the meme of like biblically accurate angels.
Yes.
So I made a throne, which is one of the ones with like interconnected circles with eyes all everywhere. And I got invited to do a piece for a Christmas show for like a Brighton gallery.
Okay.
And I was like, what's more Christmassy than an angel? So I made
just a biblically
accurate one of those biblical angels. But that was like, I literally had no idea. When I started, I had no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
And it was a case of just, figuring out what works and what didn't, and just being like, I have to keep going. I have to have something to show. And just kind of forcing myself to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think that's a key thing as well. Like if you start a project like that, even if you kind of make yourself as happy as you can be with the result in the time you're given, kind of thing. Like,
right.
Even if you did research and then you're like, I hate this, I'll just make a tiny something, or like do a tiny final sketch.
I think that's good advice. I think a very similar aspect of I always say is like, even if you don't have an idea for something, you should throw your name into the hat. Like if there's an exhibition or something, or like a zine fair or something coming up, just apply for it. And then if you get it, you've got a deadline. And then you have to make something. So it doesn't matter what you're going to make, you're going to present something on that day.
Yeah.
And then
it's also with that, like a zine fair, you've got an audience. Sometimes the problem with art is like you make stuff and then no one sees it, and then you're like, oh, no one saw it and no one likes it. But I mean, if you're on Instagram, say you have 200 followers and you share something, 25 people might actually see that.
Yeah.
And then that might be just the wrong crowd. Whereas if you can take it in person, people see it. And even if they hate it, they have to look at it. At least you have an audience, kind of thing.
That's a great tagline. Like, even if you hate it, you got to look at it.
Yeah.
It's right there. But no, I completely understand what you mean there. Is getting your work out there is as much of a challenge as making the work at times. And getting it to the right audience at the right time as well. Like the amount of times someone's found something from years ago and been like, oh, this is amazing. And I'm like, well, where were you 5 years ago?
Yeah.
When I made it, thought this is terrible. Just never did anything like it again.
Yeah, like when you were saying about buying my book on Reddit is, I think it's really good for that, because I'll make a lot of stuff that fits perfectly in like a small pigeonhole. So if I made Mark from Peep Show, I can put that straight in the Peep Show subreddit, and I know those people will instantly have a reaction to it. And there is part of art is kind of like knowing where to find the people that will like this as well. Like you wouldn't try and sell your nude art at like a Christian book fair. Do you know what I mean? That's not the right crowd. But you sell that at like out of like a kink club or something, and they'd be like, oh, this is amazing, I love this. It's like you've got to find the right place to show your stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's some solid advice. Just make what you want to make, complete it, make sure you're completing what you want to do, and then understand you got to find the right audience. And if you do that, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, basically. And then hopefully there's more people each time that just like how you think about things, and they'll come to you as a person as well.
Get that slow burn. Well, it's one of those things. I think a lot of people chase, going from 100 followers to 10,000 in a year. And I'm just like, there's nothing wrong with just collecting two people every couple of months.
Yeah.
Because they're more invested than,
exactly,
the viral sensations, as it were.
Because I can see as well, if I post a certain thing and like maybe it goes a bit viral, and all the fans of that thing flock to me, and then they see the thing I post next and they're like, maybe not. So it works both ways. And sometimes people will, I don't know where I was going with that. Never mind.
Sometimes people will stick around. You never know. Yeah. That's what I always say. That's what I say with the podcast. I get so many different people and so many variations of people, because I generally just search out people I think would be interested to talk to, like say with making the work you want to make. I chat to the people I want to chat to. And, that means sometimes I'll get people who aren't interested in any other guest. I'm like, well, that's fine. You can go along. And other ones will be like, yeah, I'll be along for the ride. Like,
yeah, nice.
Come along, get in the car, go for a drive. Let's see where this takes us. I think that's good to kind of round us out. Have you got anything upcoming? I guess is my question.
I think you said this might not come out for a while.
Yeah, so this will be October by the time right now people see this.
I mean, very optimistically, I might have another book out by now.
Okay.
I'll say it to kind of put the pressure on myself. So similar to the Bootleg Bible, but I'm working on a book about like art inspired by The Simpsons.
Okay.
In kind of all different mediums. So I've kind of got a short list at the moment. I'll be contacting people soon. But yeah, I'm trying to, hopefully that'll be out by now. But yeah, I want to have there's embroiderers, there's sculptors, there's painters, comic artists, toy makers, kind of all doing their own mishmash of stuff from The Simpsons. So hopefully that'll be out in a book by now.
Interesting. I may send you a link because there's a lot of Simpsons graffiti in Nottingham.
Oh, cool. I actually went to uni in Nottingham.
Oh, really? The whole Hockley area. That whole area's got a lot of Simpsons graffiti in it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, send some over.
I mean, in that sense, buy Ben's book in December.
Yeah, sweet.
Well, thanks for coming on, Ben. It's been great to chat to you.
Thanks for having me.
Learn more about your work and whatnot. I'll leave links everywhere for people to check you out, but if you got one specific you want them to go to, Instagram, wherever.
BasedGore is my Instagram. I guess that's probably the best one.
BasedGore. We'll check you out there. All right. In that case, thanks for coming along.
Cheers.
We'll talk to these guys later. Bye.
Bye.